how's it going? So, one of the things I wanted to talk about, probably the only thing I wanted to talk about today, is a problem that I see in society that is just it's basically is very destructive to the way we live our lives and see each other, and it's called a zero sum game mentality. And so, zero sum game is essentially it's a type of game. Don't think of it in terms of a game like a board game or anything like that. It comes from game theory, where it's a way of it's strategic thinking, and it's a strategic thinking within a certain situation. Now, a classic example of this is actually a game, like a board game or a sports game. So if you think about baseball, right? So there are certain rules within the game that basically shows you how the game itself functions. You have batters, you have pitchers, you have fielders, and you play 9 innings, and there's 3 outs per inning per team. But the winner, the deciding factor of the winner is the team with the most runs. So all the other stats, they don't matter as much as, they might contribute to the runs, but they're not the thing that ends up winning the game. So in this case, in a zero-sum game, is that the winner wins at the expense of the loser. So in a game, there's a winner and there's a loser. And that's it, right? There's nothing more complicated than that. All the other stuff it might be details that might have led to these consequences. But the ultimate judgment on the game is team A wins, team B loses. But this is not the way things work, but it's very embedded in our mind. Now, it works in the game of baseball. It might work in some aspects of life, but this is not the way society works. But most people don't know that, or they just haven't thought about things in a different perspective. So I think that the mentality is very deep-seated. It could come from evolutionary psychology, where let's say you have a sort of tribe, hundreds of thousands of years ago, who settle on the banks of a river. That way they get fresh water, need to live, and animals look for fresh water there, and that's a source of food. Now up comes a second tribe, and they want the river valley, and there's not enough room for both of them, so they decide to duke it out. So in this game, this little battle that they fight is over a very finite resource. There's one river valley in this area. So the thing is, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, and that's it. Because and ultimately this boils down to the fact that there are very finite resources. If there were dozens of rivers around there, it wouldn't be a problem. They wouldn't have to fight over anything. But there isn't. That isn't the case. So let's go back to modern day. Most of life doesn't really work this way. So we have enough resources that everybody can at least have what they need. And my consumption of something doesn't really preclude you from enjoying anything. I would say, if you looked at, say, for example, in the case of when a couple gets married, man will say, well, there's a good woman off the market. Well, it's true that she's off the market in the sense that she's basically not going to be dating anybody else, and that's it. She's out of the dating pool. But there are millions upon millions of other women out there. So her getting married doesn't mean you'll never get married. It means you just won't get married to that particular woman. And so you have to see that this is not an extremely scarce resource. A woman. There are millions of women out there. There are billions of women out there. And once you recognize this, you say, okay, she's a nice woman, but there are plenty of others out there, right? So, and in another example of this, so when for example, so the thing is, if this guy wins at succeeding in marrying this woman, doesn't mean everybody else is poorer from it. You're still single, and you won't. It's not necessarily the case that you will be permanently single because this is the only woman around. But let's say, for example, you have, in the case of, that this is a sort of, it's not a negative. And in a sense, look at something like depression. So if you have depression, I don't know how to describe it to somebody who's never had it, doesn't understand it. It's a fog that comes over your life and you become a different person. All of the happy thoughts you've ever had just kind of disappear. You might recognize the feeling of having been happy once, but it's a very distant memory, and you can only realize you only experience the here and now and the future. The past does not exist anymore. If it does, it's only a nostalgic thing. And so you're in this funk where you just think everything is going bad and you're never going to get out of it. And it's not being sad. Most people don't understand this. And the thing is that if you are a depressed person and you have other people in your life, like a wife, a friend, family members, your problem is their problem. So they don't gain off of you being depressed. And if you move beyond your immediate circle, nobody else gains because you're depressed. There's no winner or loser. There's only losers. That everybody is down because of this. And I'm not blaming the depressed person, me personally. There's probably things you can do to make things better or at least mitigate the effects of it. However, everyone's a loser. So this is not a zero-sum game. Your depression doesn't benefit anybody. So the thing is, when something good happens to you, say, for example, you get a nice job, or you have a child, by and large, that is a good thing for everyone involved. Everyone close to you celebrates your job, your child being born. Your happiness is their happiness. This is a shared success, a shared happiness. Like depression is a shared misery. And you need to see things in terms of, look, we are all in this together. And the thing is, you need to focus on the immediate effects more than the very abstract and distant effects. That's not real. And the thing is, a problem shared is a problem halved. I know that's sort of a hokey cliche of a proverb, but it's true. It's not always true. It does lighten the burden. Maybe not technically halved, but somebody understands your pain. Let's make it a little bit better. Maybe that, part of the misery of being depressed is you think that nobody understands how crappy you feel. If people do understand it doesn't, the crappy part of it is still there, but the fact of being alone isn't, So, and likewise, a success. Part of the success is the success itself. If you have get a good job, and then other people are happy for you, and it just pings off, and so it's like a happiness, a happy thing is doubled, or maybe not doubled, but it's compounded anyway. But the problem is that this sort of zero-sum game mentality causes a lot of resentment, because the thing is, if you think in life that there are winners and losers, then you lose a lot, right? You don't have success. You are going to be looking for people to blame your failures on. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes it is somebody else tripping you up. Most of the time, it's not. And it's once you've honestly, you've gone through and you say, well, there's nobody I can actually point to and say I failed because of this person or because of this thing. You start looking for more abstract reasons for conspiracies, which tend to be abstract, but because they're not very grounded in anything. So you start looking and say, oh, well, the man is getting me down. Well, who is this man you speak of? There might be, everybody wants to believe that there's a cabal of people sitting in a dark room, a dark, smoky room, deciding what the world is going to be like. Sometimes things just happen. And to go beyond the concrete and go into the abstract is really to enter into a world of fantasy, especially when you're trying to assign blame for real problems. So let's try to get a little less abstract about the abstraction. So in the sense of, like, if you start looking at you, let's say, for example, you're of a certain race or you are a woman and you think that men are the problem. That's a bit, you're basically going to have to say that there's a giant conspiracy against women by all men. I will let you in on a little secret. We men do not have a club where we, at least they didn't invite me, so that's all I know, is that I'm not involved with any cabal. I barely leave the house as it is. Nobody really consults me. I do have a consulting fee, so maybe they know about that and they just decide not to let me in on their little conspiracy. But to go into this abstract world is to go into fantasy. And once you go into fantasy, it becomes addicting because there's nothing that says, well, that's not true. Because you can't prove that it's not true. Therefore, I think that's sort of the way conspiratorial-minded people operate, is that they need evidence to shut them down. And when they don't have evidence, because there isn't any evidence, because you've left the realm of reality, and now you're just sort of in this sort of abstract fantasy land. You're the only one there. And so there's nothing really going to say, that's not true. If you want to blame me personally for your problem, I'll say, well, I wasn't even anywhere near them. I didn't even have any contact with them. I don't even care about the situation. I have no interest for or against you. Why would you do that? And you could probably prove that I did not trip you up or, stop you from getting hired or whatever. But if you just start inventing a character and then assigning all the blame on him, or her, then you essentially have gone into this world where you are in the zero-sum mentality. But you're basically saying the winner against your loss is a fictional character. I mean, when you think about it in those terms, that's insane. That is crazy. And it's time to go back to the drawing board and find out why you're not winning. Now, I think anything beyond that is, thinking about a conspiracy or biases or anything like that, I think it's a waste of time. There might be a conspiracy. There might be a bias against you, sort of hidden in the subliminal parts of our brain. But it's not very productive. It doesn't solve your problem. All it does is wages a war against people. These abstractions you have invented and you've assigned all the blame of your loss on actually represent people in your real life. So a very bitter person, a very bitter man who thinks that women are just horrible people, you've extracted that in your brain because you had a couple bad experiences with women. Or maybe you don't even know that you're the problem. You basically have written off half the human population by that. And the same is true with women who think that men are source of all evil. Fine, your dad was an asshole. Fine, that boyfriend really screwed you over. I didn't do anything. Sorry, I don't even know who you are. Let alone do I care about tripping you up. I don't get anything out of that. It assumes a very petty mentality. Upon everybody that you've abstracted this representation of half the population or a certain segment of the population upon. It's insane. You need to stop. Let's go back to reality. It's more productive for you. So when you get back to it, is that anybody who thinks in this zero-sum game mentality beyond a few instances like games, or, yeah, okay, in a job, if you have 20 candidates for a job position, then one person's going to get it. And that one person's going to be the reason why you didn't get it. Now, to be honest with you, if you think about it, like they probably chose somebody who was more suited for the job. Obviously, when they hire somebody, they don't actually know how they're going to perform, but they make as good of a guess of how good this person's going to be and how not bad they're going to be. And then they choose the best candidates. You know, sometimes they just leave the job open because they're like, no, I don't like any of these people. They don't look good enough, or there are lots of warning signs about these people. Now, with that said, we need to drop the mentality and say, well, okay, I didn't win that game. Go into the next game, and the next game, and the next game. But I think this mentality, if you start assigning blame on abstractions, and you think in terms of winners and losers, it becomes sort of hardens your heart, because the thing is that you don't realize that most people are on your side. If they're not on your side, they don't know about you. They don't care about you. Not in a bad way. They don't know you to care about you. So they need to, so don't assume that people who don't know about you hate you. And I would say that let's just do this thing, just drop the mentality. Unless you're playing Monopoly, then go ahead and be a shark, but don't be a jackass afterwards, But let's just keep it to the zero-sum games, to the actual zero-sum games, and realize that most of life is a net positive gain or a net zero gain game. And the thing is that you have to realize that most people, when you succeed, are going to be very happy for you. And me, I don't even know you. I do wish you win, because I win. Everybody, I'm happy for people who do well in life when they win. I don't really. It's not like I get any material benefit. There's no ulterior motive. I'm just generally happy for people when they win, and they're good people, and they can succeed, and they don't go too far, So anyway, that's my thought on that. If you have anything to say about it, then please feel free to help me out, educate me. See you soon. Bye.